Part-2, Chapter-5. Aindra began his Vrindavan Pujari service on Krishna Balaram's altar, but a year after restoring the 24-hour kirtan, he was shifted over to Sri Sri Radha Shyam Sundar's. His approach on the altar, his cultivating of loving relationships with the deities, had developed since his service to the deities in Chicago in the early 80s, but its essence hadn't changed. Everything he did for their pleasure. Increasingly, over the course of his years in Vrindavan, Aindra's interactions with their lordships, inspired and nourished by his deep attachment to the holy names in japa and kirtan, were more than worship or service. They were exchanges of spontaneous love, manifestations of his inner bhav, which, as a pujari, he was able to express personally in a direct, physical way. Quote, "Seva is based on the principle of love," he said. "It is for Krishna's pleasure. So arti is for his pleasure, and in consideration of how to please him, we should associate those things that are pleasing to him with the thing we are trying to do." His affection was evident in every glance and gesture. He would weep, put his head on their lordships' feet and embrace them, whisper into their ears, reach out, and, holding their arms, gaze deeply, lovingly, into their eyes. When he was coming to dress the deities, there was a certain passion and excitement in him, Govinda Dasi later remembered, like he was coming to rendezvous with his beloved lords. As with any loving relationship, however, things didn't always go smoothly, and every now and then Aindra would have to lovingly chastise Krishna. Having dressing problems as darshan time approached one morning, Shyamasundar's turban was sliding back on his head, its flowers and decorations slipping off, almost as if he were playfully dropping it. Aindra scolded him, "Come on, Krishna, behave yourself. Don't give me such a hard time." He was immersed in this affection day and night, another devotee described. It was not a metaphor, not imaginary. He had a real relationship with them, and his deity worship was the inspiration, the inner generator for his spiritual potency behind such powerful kirtan. Quote, "He was not just doing external deity worship," agreed Mukunda Dattadas from Switzerland, who had served with Aindra in New York. He moved to Vrindavan in 1988, spent a great deal of time with Aindra on the altar, Mukunda Datta dressing Radharani, while Aindra dressed Shyamasundar, and in 1992 became the temple's head pujari, a position he has held for almost 30 years. Quote, "He worshipped the deities with the internal aspect of being absorbed in Brajabhav." Aindra's bhav was most visibly expressed in the way he dressed and decorated the divine couple. He saw dressing Radharani as service to Shyamasundar and dressing Shyamasundar as a service to her. Before placing a garland on her, he would touch it to Krishna's hand so as to imbue it with his fragrance and thus increase her pleasure, and vice versa. He wanted to please Shyamsundar by helping Radharani be as beautiful as possible, and he wanted to please her by making Krishna attractive to her eyes. His method was to configure everything, the painting, flowers, garlands, ornaments, cloth, the deities themselves, into a tableau vivant, a living picture of Radha Krishna's eternal Ras Leela. Just as Aindra's kirtans had had a transformational effect on Krishna Balaram Mandir, his deity service on the altar had an immediate effect on the temple's standard of worship. Quote, "There was a difference," Borijan Prabhu noticed, and the difference was very clear. As soon as Aindra's influence started showing up on the deities, everything was in motion and everything was curved. The deities' garlands were going like this, and the garlands were going like that, from one side to the other, and Shyamasundars' crown was off to Radharani's side. Before it was very linear, but this was spontaneous. and because of him and his dressing and his training of other pujaris, their attractiveness, their unique attractiveness really took off. It was quite amazing. Everyone's appreciation grew so much more, and the deities were part of the cause of the increasing popularity of Krishna Balaram Mandir. The days Aindra dressed Radhashama Sundar, quote, were like a festival, very special, Govindadasi agreed. The expressions on the faces of the deities when he dressed them were so gorgeous, so exquisite, that you would just want to look and look and look at them. In those days, he was also doing kirtan in the morning, and that too was enhancing the mood. You could really see how happy and absorbed he was on the altar, another devotee described. He was dressing them in such a way that they were smiling, dancing, playing, really moving around. Every time it was an adventure. The garlands were flowing, and everything was fluid, causing Radhe Shyam to move either toward or away from each other, like a moving photograph, full of life. Quote, the best ideas I got for dressing the deities, Mukunda Datta acknowledged, I got from Aindra Prabhu. It took some time, however, for Aindra to gain acceptance from some of the other pujaris. The way he expressed his devotion to Radhe Shyam was uncommon, and at times it crossed the line of what they deemed acceptable. Sometimes for their lordship's pleasure he would massage Radha and Krishna's feet, but one morning when he was seen kissing Radha's, one of the pujaris objected. Quote, do you know what Aindra is doing? He complained to Mukunda Datta. He is kissing her feet. Good, Mukunda Datta replied. At least someone around here has some devotion. The pujari took his complaint to the temple president, but again, Mukunda Datta stood by Aindra and was able to settle the unrest. Quote, in Bhagavatam, we hear that even Dhruva Maharaj says that he wants to kiss the feet of Vishnu, he said, so what to speak of Brajabhav? Aindra's only desire on the altar was to please the deities and not disturb them. During the summer, for Shyamasundar's comfort, when the altar doors were closed, he would keep him undressed for as long as possible. Quote, are you going to make him stand there in his kopans all day? Another pujari questioned. Aren't you going to dress him? Give him a break, Aindra replied. It's hot. The pujari started to admonish Aindra, saying that having Krishna undressed for so long was indecent. But Krishna is hot, Aindra told him. This is for ventilation. You're a mundane moralist. Don't do anything to your lordships that you wouldn't want done to yourself, he instructed. He disdained the use of matches on the altar because of their sulfurous smell and its effect on the deities. Quote, all the sulfur dioxide goes right in the eyes and the nose of the Lord. It's a common sense thing, he said. If I want to do something for the pleasure of my deity, I should consider whether he is satisfied, whether he is pleased, because he is a person and is more sentient than we are. The senses of our body are dead, and for the soul to perceive things through the agency of mind and senses is a tough job, because really, although something is coming through, it is basically a distortion of reality. What he perceives is the reality. One person may have a higher developed sensibility than another. Usually that person who is more spiritually advanced has more highly developed sensibilities and can perceive things that the neophyte can't. But it doesn't take much advancement to perceive that the gross, disgusting smell which the lighting of matches produces can hardly be pleasing to the deity. That means that they are not considering that the deity has a nose to smell, which means that they are basically impersonalists. The neophyte is basically an impersonalist. He does customary worship of the deity and does not consider the beauty of relationships with Vaishnavas. Therefore, he squabbles in politics and relationship with Vaishnavas in order to usurp the position of using the deity as a commodity for fulfilling his particular demands, which are usually sense gratificatory. That's called a neophyte or prakrita bhakta, a materialistic devotee. Such person is quite capable of doing puja, but what we want is seva. We want to increase our seva bhavana. And especially in personal deity worship, it is a greatest opportunity for allowing your heart to melt in the experience of your personal relationship with Krishna, who has come to your own hands by the grace of Guru, by the grace of the Vaishnavas. Krishna has come into my life, and he wants to encourage me to deepen my internal seva bhavana toward him, so it is important that we always think in terms of seva. Another time, during a Radhastami festival, when someone had placed a speaker right in front of the altar, Aindra spoke in the deity's defense. "What is this? Who put this speaker there? Can't you understand? It is blaring in the deity's ears. It's too loud. It's disturbing them." When he was told that the speaker could be removed later, he countered, "Not later, now." And when no one moved to take action, he grabbed the scissors he'd been using while dressing the deities and cut the speaker wires himself. A visiting pujari protested, but Aindra said, "I don't care. If it disturbs the deities, it has to be stopped." He wouldn't tolerate any disturbance to them, whether it be noise from fans crackling, doors slamming, pots banging, or people talking too loudly. Some complaints about Aindra's deity service were expressed with outright disrespect. When one of the pujari's wives wanted Aindra to drape the deities with grape garlands, but he refused on the grounds both that the grapes would stain the deity's dress and that there was no shastric support for Krishna ever wearing grape garlands, she yelled at him in front of the pujaris and other devotees and cursed him. Quote, "If I am a chaste wife, he will fall from his position." After another accusation by a pujari that Aindra was using too many big pins and thus was pricking Shyamasundar, the temple president himself came onto the altar to check on Aindra as he was dressing the deities. Eventually, the pujari's wife repented and begged Aindra's forgiveness, and the other charges were proven false. But these were just a few of the many times Aindra was disrespected or challenged, including by devotees without authority. Not everyone seemed to heed his decades of preaching, book distribution, kirtan, mentoring, pujari work, and other devotional service. One morning, when the altar curtains opened, Shamasundar's hands were empty. Murmurs arose from the devotees gathered for morning darshan. "Who dressed Krishna?" one asked. "He forgot his flute." Then they saw it, in Radharani's hand. The scene before them, several recognized, portrayed the Leela in which Srimati Radharani's friends steal Krishna's flute. "Hari Bol," someone called out, "Jai Shri Radhe." Others were not so happy, and Aindra was again called in for a talk by the temple management. Quote, "Two things must always be on the deity of Krishna," he was told, "a peacock feather and a flute. If you do something like this again, we may have to bar you from deity worship." Aindra reacted strongly. He had been dressing Shri Shri Radha Shyamasundar every day for the previous 8 months, but the next afternoon, upset by the reprimand, he asked Mukunda Datta to take over his services for Shri Shri Radha Shyamasundar, and he did not return to them for almost 2 years, until Mukunda Datta became head pujari and asked him to resume the service. When the curtains opened one morning in the winter of 1989, Aindra was amazed by what he saw. Srimati Radharani's eyes were newly painted, and they were incredible, more beautiful than ever. "Who painted them?" he asked Radha Shamasundar's pujari, Bhakti Siddhanta Das. "One of the brahmacharis," Bhakti Siddhanta had replied. Aindra knew something was off. No pujari, no artist he'd ever known would have been able to paint Radharani's eyes with such bhav or spiritual expertise. "No way," he challenged. "Who painted them?" Bhakti Siddhanta held fast. He wouldn't identify the source of the transformation. But when Aindra kept asking, Bhaktisiddhanta finally revealed the secret. A renowned South African devotee artist, Archa Vigraha Dasi, who had come to India to find themes for her work, but was then diagnosed with cancer and remained to spend her final days in Vrindavan, had noticed that the temple deities were in need of repainting and done the work. But there had been an obstacle. As was standard, even in ISKCON temples in India, women were not allowed on the altar. But Bhaktisiddhanta, who had created the bronze bas-relief panels in Srila Prabhupada's Samadhi Mandir and was himself an accomplished artist, classically trained in Europe and America, and a successful commercial artist in New York, had felt that the deities deserved Archa Vigraha's talents and come up with a plan. Quote, I'll arrange for you to do this service, he had told her, but you have to do it in complete secrecy. Indians especially, but also other pujaris and many devotees would have disapproved of a woman doing the service. Quote, I'll leave the key to the deity room on the ledge above the door. Don't use it any earlier than 10 p.m. By that time, everyone except the boys on night shift for the 24-hour kirtan should be asleep. Quote, how will I get in without them noticing? She had asked. They sit so near the door. I don't know, he said. That's a challenge. A little after 10, Archa Vigraha had been hovering around the door to the altar, waiting for an opportunity, when Aindra had suddenly appeared beside her. Do you need something, Mataji? He had asked. No, thank you, she'd replied, and left out the temple's side door. A little while later, the electricity had gone out. It frequently did, and under the cover of darkness, Archa Vigraha had slipped back into the temple and onto the altar, where she had spent the night painting the deities' faces, hands, and feet, then sneaking out before the pujaris came to prepare for Mangalarti. The drama had resumed each night for 2 weeks. On the final night, Archa Vigraha had painted Srimati Radharani's eyes. Where is she? Aindra demanded. Prabhu, calm down. Where is she? He persisted. If you don't tell me, I'll find out from someone else. And, learning that Archa Vigraha was staying in the guest house, he rushed over. When Aindra knocked on Archa Vigraha's door, he heard a faint, come in, and entered. Archa Vigraha was lying in bed, visibly weak and ill. Aindra went straight to her feet and touched them with respect. How did you do it? He asked. Do what? She replied. How did you paint Radharani's eyes like that? I don't know, she said. I just painted what I was inspired to paint. How do you know what Radharani's eyes look like? I don't know what they look like. I just painted them by inspiration. You painted them exactly as I envision them every day in my own meditations.